record. Okay, so so you are hearing me okay?
Yes.
All right, good. Thank goodness. How are you doing tonight?
Fine.
Good. So I have your piece. I'm going to do a critique on it in a few moments.
Okay.
And I got your emails. I don't know, you were asking a couple of questions. One of the questions you were asking about was whether you could resubmit. And yes, you can. You submitted early, so that means that you could resubmit it. And I'm going to critique it tonight. I don't have an awful lot of bad things to say about it. But there will be some things that I think you might want to consider when you go back in and start working on this again. So let me do this. Let me start off, first of all, by saying, in general, Sandra, hi, how are you? Are you hearing me okay, Sandra? She was in before, unmute. Can you hear me, Sandra? Can you speak to me? Connie, you're hearing me, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Sandra, if you hear me, let me hear from you. I unmuted you. You can speak, I think.
She typed that she doesn't have a mic.
Oh, she doesn't have a mic. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I don't have that open. Maybe I should open that up. Let's see, where is it? I don't know where the heck it is. Manage participants, start video. Where is it? You share on a date. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, so this is actually a fairly easy week. You don't have a discussion. Your discussion is basically where you go in and I think there's like 3 or 4 questions that relate to this particular course. I think one of them deals with the materials and what you thought about the materials for the course. One of the questions is about me. What did you think of me as an instructor? And the third one is, I think, more generically about the projects and whatnot that you worked in or worked on in the course. So I think there's like 3 or 4 questions, something like that. And you get 5 points a piece for the questions. Obviously, give me some good answers, honest answers. You can critique me any way you want. If you feel that I stunk, let me know I stunk. If you think I did a good job, you tell me how I did a good job. Whatever you need to tell me, it will not affect your grade. I'm not vindictive at all. So you just say whatever it is you need to say. And then your final assessment is your project, which will be a poster, which we're going to be covering some of the information on that tonight. And I know, Connie, you've submitted something, but I will have you go back and work on it again.
Okay.
I have some things I'll tell you what I think you should do with it. But basically, the project is pretty clear in here, talks about what it is you should be doing. The most important thing I think for you all to think about when you work on this particular assignment is that this is a Photoshop class. You could create a poster in Illustrator, in Photoshop, and you could also create a very good poster in Adobe InDesign. And again, I don't know how much you know about these programs. Connie, have you had any interaction with Illustrator? I'd ask Sandra, but I think Sandra's mic's not working. So, Connie, I'll ask you since you're here. Illustrator, Photoshop, do you know about them? You know what they are?
Yeah, the last time I really worked in Photoshop and Illustrator was back in 2000.
Okay.
But since I started this school, I've had 2 classes kind of touching in with Illustrator, and then yours is the first class with Photoshop.
So you're beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, you're gonna go through a lot more. You'll get a lot more experience and a lot more time with these programs, and they are really central to your work as a graphic designer. You're going to need to know Photoshop. You're going to need to know Adobe Illustrator, and you're going to have to develop your comfort level and your skills with the program. I would say if you enjoy doing this work, it will not be difficult. If you don't enjoy doing this work, oh, and by the way, you're going to be hearing the phone ringing all night. I had a death in the family, so
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It's, these things happen. The lady was 91 years old, and we don't live forever.
Right.
Right. So yeah, so there'll be phone calls in the background. So I apologize for that. Yeah. So what I was saying is that these programs actually are a tremendous amount of fun, and especially if you really like the idea of being a graphic designer. I talked to a lot of students over the past. I've been doing this at this school for about 3 years now, and I've talked to quite a few students, and there are some students that are really all gassed up on this. They really love doing this work. They're all excited and, can't get enough of it. And then there are others that I kind of think are just sort of trying to figure out what they want to do, and maybe this is what they want to do and they're not totally sure. So somebody that is feeling that way probably isn't going to be as motivated to become as proficient as they can be or might be with the programs. But if you really think this is what you want and you enjoy doing this work, you'll probably find over the course of your stay with Independence that these programs will be utilized by you enough that you'll get a pretty solid understanding of what they do. And if you're lucky enough to get work, I have no idea where you guys live, and I don't know how hard it will be to find work. I can tell you that I lived in New Hampshire for 4 years, and I worked for a guy in New Hampshire, and I tried to find other work as well. The guy that I worked for was a friend of mine, and I did try to find other work. Not that I didn't like working for him, but I was hoping maybe that if I found a job up there, I could stay there permanently. I found it almost impossible for me to find work up in New Hampshire, and I ended up having to come back to New Jersey in order to work. So I don't know where you guys are from, and I don't know how much or how little the work might be available in those areas. So, and that has a determining factor. You know what I mean? There's certain places like New Hampshire. New Hampshire just was not alive with that kind of work. So that's something to consider. Yeah. So back to what we're doing here. This is your final project. It's a print poster project. Now, it says here something about you guys are a web class. I mean, are you a graphic designer or are you web design?
Well, I'm trying to get transferred into the graphic design, but I was originally put in web design.
Okay, so they actually have a web design class, and they have or curriculum, a web design curriculum, and they have a graphic design curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I wonder why that is. I would think that. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Well, anyway, that's what I noticed here. This is a print project, and the final poster size is 11 by 17. I would tell you flat out that the majority of the time working in Adobe Photoshop is not the optimum place to be doing a poster like this. The artwork for a poster, yeah, it's a great place to be doing that. But I would probably be doing the rest of the poster in a layout program like Adobe InDesign. But with that being said, you can do it. And you do get benefits from working in Adobe Photoshop as opposed to Adobe InDesign, because there's more sophisticated techniques and tools and things like effects and styles that are available in Adobe Photoshop than are available in Adobe InDesign. And a lot of times what ends up happening is you end up doing effects and stuff in Photoshop, and then you import that element or those elements into InDesign to create your layout. You'll learn this as you go along. However, if you're in a web design class, then you probably won't get quite as much of the print stuff as you will get mostly web stuff. But anyway, that's basically what it is. And here we're working on a poster. The poster size is 11:17. So the first thing that I would do if I were you, and it says here, create a new document, Photoshop 11:17 vertical or 11:17 horizontal, 300 DPI, CMYK. I'm not sure whether you remember or not, but at the very beginning, I talked about this a little bit. Do you remember that at all, Connie?
Yes.
So why would I be talking about 300 DPI in this particular case, and why CMYK? Do you remember?
I remember you talking about, but not all the details.
So here's the deal. The deal is that 300 dpi is a level of resolution that would be correct for CMYK, which is the same thing as process printing. So why they're having you do this in 300 dpi and CMYK is so that it would be correctly done and able to be printed. That's essentially why they're doing it, and that's why I mentioned it at the very beginning of the course when we were first, talking about Photoshop. The first night, I believe, is when I went through all this. Yeah, so I mean that's the whole thing. So you're going to be creating your design. You're going to make it a PSD file. That's the native document. Now you can, if you wanted to, you could save the PSD as an InDesign document. A PDF document. And you could bring that into InDesign and you can continue working on it. Or you could actually just open up your Photoshop document, the PSD document in InDesign, and work on it as well. So here's some of the requirements. The posters will have the following required elements. At least 3 distinct areas of text. The text you use is up to you. Headline, paragraph, speech bubble, etc. So in other words, what it's trying to do is it's trying to get you to you. Well, first of all, what's a poster? A poster is essentially a graphic that tells a story. And you really should try to be very clever with the story that you tell. And the 3 distinct areas of text basically is the little story that supports the image. You're going to see where I've played around with this later on, and you'll get some idea. When you're doing a poster like this, you really don't want to use a lot of copy. You should have a very clear idea. You should have clever text or very clear text that makes sense. And it should be very visual. It should be set up in such a way that it stands off dramatically from the background. Usually you want it to appear and be very clear, so when a person looks at it, they don't have any problem understanding immediately what's going on. And again, because it's a poster, it should be decorative, but it should also be utilitarian. So it's telling you to experiment with interesting typefaces, size, colors. Be sure they are relative to your topic. The only thing I will tell you is when they talk about experiment with interesting typefaces, try to use a little bit of design sense and don't be crazy with different typefaces. There's a whole lot of typefaces out there, and a good designer will not use them all. Many of them are just garbage fonts, and some of them are, let's put it this way, sometimes less is more. If you go out and you create a nice blocky, bold text that reads very well, very often that's all you need to do. Now, that's sort of counterintuitive to the idea of experimenting with interesting typefaces. And I'm not trying to say you shouldn't do that. All I'm saying is that you should be careful when you choose typefaces and use good graphic design judgment. I don't know whether you guys have been introduced to the CRAP principles yet. Connie, you've got the mic, so have your instructors talked to you about CRAP yet?
No.
Okay. So that you will eventually be, you'll get into design courses where they'll talk about, contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. That's what CRAP stands for. I know it sounds like it means something else, but that's what it means. And you will actually have a course at some point where they get into all that. So I'm not going to make a big deal of that because obviously you haven't really been exposed to it yet. But just bear in mind that there are principles of design, and you're here to learn these things, and eventually you will learn these things, and you will consider them when you start working. I've been doing this work since 1971. So, I mean, I'm at the point in my life where I've done this work so long and so often that most of the stuff that I do is I don't even think about it. It's just sort of like I go sit down and I just start working. And when I look at something, I can see where I'm going wrong and I adjust. In other words, I don't even really do a lot of preliminary thinking. I just get basically the information and I immediately start putting together my visual representation of what I'm doing. But that's, I mean, 1971, and here it is, it's 2016. It's an awful lot of time I've been doing this. You see what I'm saying? The more time you have with this, the more experienced you are with these things, and the more natural it'll become for you. And that's to be said about anything. And it's saying here that they want you to use at least 3 photographic resources. So really what that means essentially is, you know, we've had 3 or 4 different assignments. One of the assignments, or 2 of the assignments, let me see, what was the first one? First one was first one you did was a wallpaper, right? A background. And the third one that you did was the picture of the animal, right?
Yes.
Am I right? And the second one was a retouching. Yeah, so if you think about it, the first one and the third one, more than likely, I don't remember exactly what you did, Sandra or Connie, but I'm sure that you, in each case, used more than one photographic resource, and you used montage. You know what a montage means, right? When you were working with your third project, which would have been the pet or the animal that was doing something interesting, when you silhouetted the objects and when you morphed the objects together to create a composite image, what you were doing is you were working in montage. That's essentially what you were doing, taking bits and pieces of things and sort of molding them together in a creative way. So, you know, this project probably represents some sort of thing like that, where you're actually going to be playing around with some sort of a montaging effect. And the instructions are, once it's done, save it as a PDF. What is this now? So web production, open PDF, PSD file, resize image to 500 pixels in the shortest side. Okay, so essentially what this is doing, it's asking you to take your image and create an alternative image to it. Now, do you guys know how to resize an image from 1117 down to 500 pixels? Would you be able to do that, Connie? Do you have to do that by yourself, or do you need me to show you how to do that tonight?
I don't know how, but Sandra says she does.
Okay, so Sandra knows, but then I guess I'll show you. So do me a favor. Do not let me forget to show you that, because it is something I think will probably be helpful for you. All right?
Okay.
All right. So both the PDF and the JPEG in the assignment Dropbox for grading, so you got to really submit both. So here's one of the images, and actually I have that image, and this image here is another image, and I actually am using this image as a demonstrator tonight. All right, so I'm actually going to play around with that second image in there. Okay, so that's really all it is. Now I have one final thing that I want to talk about very briefly with both of you guys. Connie, this does apply to you, because you said to me earlier tonight that you were going to work on your poster and you were going to resubmit it, which I said you could do. You submitted it early enough and I graded it already. I don't know, did you go in and take a look at what I wrote?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so essentially what it comes down to is everybody has until the end of the day, Saturday, to submit things to me. And I do want to see everybody pass, and I do want to see everybody do as well as they could possibly do. I think you'll find that out of all the instructors that you'll come across, I'm actually one of the nicer ones, and I'm actually one of the more helpful ones. I do everything I possibly can to help you. I want to see you guys succeed, and I try very hard to, you know, approach you from the angle of, you know, how can I make this a better experience for you, and make it so that you get the most out of it. So what I'm getting at is that you guys can work on any project that you have either not completed to your satisfaction or haven't completed. You have until the end of the day, Saturday, to work on any of those projects and submit them to me, and I will take a look at them, and if I can possibly give you a better grade for the work that you've done to improve that project, I will do that. If I don't feel that you've improved the project, I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you, because that's all I can be, is honest with you. If you've improved it, I'll let you know you improved it, and based on how you improved it, I will improve your grade. But just so that you understand, I cannot allow any time after Saturday, the end of the day. So if it isn't in by the end of the day Saturday, the grade stays the way it is. Okay, so is that clear?
Yes.
All right, you got any questions or any thoughts or anything at all you want to say at this point, Connie?
No.
Okay. All right, so yeah, so that's it for this. And I think for a minute, let me bring your image up. So here's your image. Look familiar to you, Connie?
Oh, yes.
All right. So I don't have an awful lot to say about this. I see what you've done, essentially. You've basically come in here, and let me see if I can make this a little smaller. Actually, I made this a little bigger than I want it to be. Let me see. That didn't work. Let me see. Oh, no, I don't want that either. There we go. That's what I wanted. I want to make it a little smaller. I didn't like it the size it was. Let me open up just a bit, though. There we go. That's probably good. So here's my critique. This is what I'm seeing here. Generally speaking, I think that you have an interesting image. Where did you get the images from? You probably got a sky, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the sky is one image. Then you look like you come up with some sort of a map type of a deal. Now, is there more than one map image, or is it one map image?
It's actually a flat map.
Okay. So the bottom area then is a map area, and that's one solid piece of graphic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's two images, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then the third image is that tree image.
Yes.
Okay, so really, I have to tell you, you've managed to kind of cobble these three images together fairly nicely. I mean, you know, again, when was the last time you really worked with Photoshop?
Back in 2000.
Yeah. So I mean, when you stop and think about it, I can't really fault you too much, because frankly, for the effort that you put into this, it's a pretty darn good effort to do something like this. I could say to you that you probably in the end will be able to do this a lot better. But given the fact that, you know, it's been a long time since you've worked with the program, I'd say generally speaking, this is a fairly successful image. I can see this working. This could be made to work. Now, here's the problem I have with it. And it is kind of a typical problem. You did a very nice job with the sky. You did a very nice job with the map type area. And you even did a very nice job with the tree. But then what you did was you basically fell flat when it came to the type. The type really does nothing for me. And I'll tell you why I say that. First of all, regenerate the earth, rejuvenate life. I can read it, but I can't read it in a way that, how do I put this? It doesn't flow. It doesn't flow very well. You know, in other words, I can read it. I can see what it says. I'm not deceived by it. It's not something that I have to think about. But from a design standpoint, it doesn't flow very well. So what I think you need to do with the type is you need to give more consideration to the arrangement of the type on the page. How does the type work on the page? That's the first thing. I just think you need to kind of rethink that a little bit. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, I don't have a great deal of issue with the white, because I think probably white is more or less the most logical way to go. But I think what you did was you missed a tremendous opportunity, and that is to do something a little bit more exciting with the type. The font isn't bad. The font is nice and bold, so really that isn't too bad. I do think that in the case of regenerate the earth, rejuvenate life, I think the stands out. It probably, normally I don't have a problem with using upper and lowercase, but since you only use it there, on the lowercase the, I think you're probably better off not to use the lowercase and use it all uppercase. You see my point? Mm-hmm. In other words, if you had used regenerate and rejuvenate capped, and then maybe the earth life lowercase, that might have been a little bit better. But to just have the word the lowercase with all the rest of it uppercase lowercase doesn't work. So I think you probably want to change that. Are you good with what?
Okay.
Okay. Now, the other thing is, so once you rethink the positioning of the type, the flow of the type, that's the first thing. The second thing, make them all, initial caps. Then the next thing is, what can you do to make the type stand off of the background some? Now, Adobe Photoshop has all kinds of great techniques. One of the ones that I use quite frequently to do this kind of thing is a drop shadow. And as a matter of fact, tonight I'll show you how I use a drop shadow in one of the graphics that I'm going to work on later. So my critique of this is that, number one, work on the flow of the text, create a better flow from regenerate the earth, rejuvenate life. Maybe group the regenerate the earth in a position and then rejuvenate life, maybe group that in another position somewhere. Again, you're going to have to do some thinking, some creative thinking about this. They are two phrases, or they are one phrase, but they are two separate aspects of the same phrase. So, how you decide to do that, you're going to have to figure that one out. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, am I helping you at all?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And then, of course, like I say, the size isn't bad. The size of the text isn't bad. And the whiteness of it and the weight, that's all pretty good. So if you didn't change the font, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't know whether you would want to make it smaller. You might be able to make it smaller. It's really hard to say. You'd have to play with it. I mean, there's a possibility that you could just literally group it up and have rejuvenate the earth. Regenerate the earth over here and rejuvenate life over here. I don't know. Maybe that's the answer. And maybe it's smaller. I don't know. You're going to have to, think this one through. The bottom line is, though, it should be a very quick and immediate kind of a recognition of what you're saying. And I think the randomness of the placement of the text on this is what's throwing it off. I think there's kind of too much of a randomness. I think you need to be a little more deliberate with it. When you're working with a poster, you have to have a certain level of deliberance to what you do. And this has got a little too much randomness for my taste. And then, as I say, since you're in Photoshop, you got those nice effects. Try some effects on it. Listen, layer effects, I'm going to show you them in a little while. Layer effects you can remove. So, I mean, if you do a layer effect, you can change it anytime you want. It's not cast in stone. So, be a little bit experimental with the font and what the font is doing. That's my critique of this piece. And as I say, the one thing, the biggest part of this is your image, the overall image. I actually think you did a pretty darn nice job with the image, especially given the fact that you haven't worked with this in several years. So, think about that.
Okay.
All right. You got any questions for me, or any comments, or anything you want to ask me about it, or any comment you want to make about it to me?
No, my only concern was that maybe I didn't make the tree bright, stand out enough.
No, I think that doesn't give me a problem. Not really. I suppose what you could do, if you wanted to, you got to be very careful with this, though, is you could do possibly a inner glow. What might be interesting, if you could pull it off, would be to, and again, I don't have your file, or I'd show you how to do this. You could create two layers of this tree. Create two layers of this tree. I assume that this tree is on its own layer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you know what a regular layer mask does, right? If you used a gradient layer mask, we did it, and you saw what it does. You can hide areas of it.
Yes.
All right. So if you had two of these trees sitting right on top of one another, and the bottom tree, you put an inner shadow on it, so that the inner shadow, it would then make the edges go in from the edge dark in. You know what I'm talking about, inner shadow?
Yes.
Okay, so if you had inner shadow on one and inner glow on the other, and if you were to create a situation where right at about the water line, you had the layer mask, in other words, you would hide the bottom of one tree, and then on the other layer, you'd hide the top of one tree, so that at about the water line, the tree began to get darker around the edges of it, almost like it was going into the ground. And up here in the sky, because you got a layer mask blocking the other part of it, the sky would have the highlight around it in a lighter color. So it's almost like it's being illuminated by the sun. Am I making sense to what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be a very cool thing, and that would be something that you could do. It would be a little bit of work, and you'd have to learn, you'd have to really control it. You'd have to make it just right. But that would be something that you could do to make that tree really sort of blend right into the whole thing. But even if you didn't do that, I mean, I wouldn't cry over that spilled milk. I mean, I'm just saying that that's something, if you wanted to make that tree a little bit more exciting, that's something that you might consider doing with it. But again, the most important thing is just to reorient your text in such a way that you have a much more cohesive message. The message is there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the message is not there. It's there. It's just scattered in a very random way that doesn't appeal to me very much. It kind of irritates me as a design approach. And what I'm saying to you is think about it and decide how you could make it look more like a cohesive, solid thought. And then perhaps look at it from the standpoint of maybe I could play around with it with a couple of layer effects to make that text pop a little bit more or stand off. You know, I don't know whether you want to do a drop shadow. You could try drop shadow. You could try maybe working with a bevel and emboss. I'm not sure which would work. You'd really have to do a little experiment. My first gut tells me if I were doing this, the first thing I would be doing would be putting a drop shadow on it. And I wouldn't put a soft drop shadow. I'd put a very subtle, somewhat dark, a little bit hard edge drop shadow. Later on tonight, when I get around to showing you a few things before the end of the night, I'll show you how I would do that, and then you could, see if that's what you want to try to do. At least use that as one way of possibly going. Doesn't mean you absolutely have to go that way, but, that's one thing that you might do. And it really comes down to where you decide to put the text. That's really what it comes down to, how you decide to handle that text and where you decide to put it. That'll determine, I think, to a large degree what you probably want to do with that text. Okay?
Okay.
All right, very good. I want to thank you also for having the courage to submit the work. Most people did not submit one, so I'm glad that you did. We were able to talk about it. And you got until Saturday to fix it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so yeah, so I'm going to just quickly remind you that these are the two images. I will show you this image. Actually, I don't need to show it to you because you've probably seen it already. This image here, I've actually taken this image and I'm actually working on this image tonight. It's not my image, but I just decided, since part of this has to do with a discussion of text and how to possibly use text, I wanted to show you a little bit about how I use text in this particular case. I thought it was a good opportunity because the text on here was really very inadequate. I thought the text is rather inadequate on this. I mean, that's very inadequate. And this up here, frankly, pretty inadequate as well. So I decided what I would do is the image is kind of nice. I thought maybe I'd play around with the text on this to see if I could come up with something that maybe is a little bit more dynamic, and also give you some ideas as to how I might approach text if I were working on an image like this. This could be, conceivably something that I montaged, which I didn't in this case. I think it's a piece of student work. But at any rate, I'll be working on that in a minute. Now, what I did do, though, and I point this out to you guys, Connie, have you gone in and taken a look at the announcements recently?
No.
Okay, so let me quickly go here. And what happened to all my announcements? What? 1041. Where'd my announcements go? Wait a minute. Courses. Let me hold on a minute here. There. Oh, you know what? I think that's the new course. I have another course I'm teaching this again. That's what it is. I was in the wrong one. No! What? Hey! What's this? Where's my announcements? Wait a minute. It's this one. Maybe it's that one. Maybe that's the new one. I'll bet that's what it is. There you go. Huh. Well, that scared the heck out of me. All right, so here's the deal. There's your weekly recorded session. So what I did was, this is just an announcement that I made. I don't even remember what it is. Okay, just to tell you, a little bit about the last week. But this is the one that I wanted to show you right here. So what I did was I went in and I created for you a series of links that will help with the final assessment. And those links, what I have here, I have two YouTube videos that we're going to watch real quickly. All right. But anyway, I just want to let you know that there is this link in here, and there's a bunch of different, some video and some tutorials on posters in Photoshop. Okay. So I just wanted to let you know that. All right. So let's see here. I got this one. Okay. So here's the first one. I got two Photoshop design video YouTubes I'd like you to watch. So here we go. This is the first.
Most importantly, thank you so much for viewing my videos and subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button. You guys really do mean the world to me, and I do this for you. I mean, I know schools charge a lot of money to do, for graphic design schools and all that stuff. They charge you so much money, and it's like almost impossible to pay back. So my whole goal is just to bring you guys free videos to help you out from your home desk. So anyway, I just want to get started. Today I'm going to be focusing on a business poster design. This design is really simple. I'm not trying to get too complicated with it, but I just want to show you guys that you can do something really clean in a short amount of time for your own business, or maybe for a friend you want to make a poster. So yeah, let's dig right into it since I don't have a lot of time here. So today I have a coffee poster background that I took myself. It's actually a stock image, and when I say by take myself, I actually purchased this image, so you can actually use it wherever you want to since you own rights to it. And I do recommend you doing that. Don't use something random off the internet, because chances are it's someone else owns it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pretty much make a business poster, and this can be for your local coffee shop or whatever your business is called. Obviously, you want to stick to the guidelines of what your business does. If it's like a marketing business, obviously you want to maybe put some people in the background shaking hands or something, stick to that style. I'm going to put it's all about the coffee, because it's all about the coffee. We all love coffee. Well, at least I do. I don't know about you guys. And then another thing you need to do is make sure you choose the right font. And obviously this isn't the right font, but that's what we're getting at. By the way, this video is, or this canvas right here that's going to be 15 by 20, 300 resolution. Make sure it's 300 resolution, because you want this to be really high quality. And the poster design probably would be a lot bigger than this, but for the sake of this video, I just chose 15 by 20. That's typically what I do a t-shirt design in. All right, let's get started. So I'm thinking cursive font. I don't know why. I'm feeling the cursive vibe.
Because you're an idiot.
Let me see here. I'm going to try to make it a little different. Maybe even a baseball feel. I have this font that's pretty interesting. Actually, I'm just going to say all about the coffee. How about that? I'm just using the text tool, guys, and then the palette up here on the top bar. When you use this palette, I don't even know what it's called. It's the text palette. You can actually adjust the width, the size. Never adjust the width, though, like the height of the font. You don't want to warp the font at all. There's other ways to do it more effectively. The only thing you really need to mess with is like the letter spacing and all that, but for this video, I'm just going to keep it at 0, and then everything else needs to be zeroed out. So there we go. We're going to stick with that. So all about the copy. Let's do this. I like to, sometimes I make different layers, but for this video, I'm just going to keep it all on the same layer. It's all about, and we'll probably do the a little differently. Sorry it took me so long to make a video, guys. Usually I try not to wait that long to make a video. I put all twice, huh? It's really for me, apparently. All about. And I think I'm going to make it kind of fancy. I think I want to make it fancy. We'll draw some rectangle lines here. And if you're confused on what I'm doing already, then you should probably go back and watch my other videos, because it's I go over a lot of these simple tools in my other videos. We're going to add some contrast to this, so that the is going to be a smaller. It's not, to me, that is not important. I feel like I can't talk today, guys. Wow, what's going on with me? All right, anyway, I feel like it's not as important to have the big, as big as everything else. So I like to make things smaller, especially when they're not needing to stand out as much. And then what we're going to do is go to warp. And all I did to do that, guys, is I just did Command T on my Mac, and then I did warp. I don't know what it is on PC, I'm sorry. And then I'm going to do like a banner look, like it's waving in the wind. Why not? And it can actually be even a little smaller than that. And then copy, I want to make it a nice cursive font. Only capitalizing the C. And this is going to be in a cursive font. And of course it's going to be the biggest, because it needs to stand out. It's the most important. It's copy. So now that I look at it, though, I can do something that's a lot cooler. I can add a little bit more contrast. All about. I'm still going to keep that same font that I used. The reason why I don't really go over my fonts too much, guys, is because I really want you to mess with your own fonts. I don't want you to copy my fonts, because I want you to be creative, and I want you to try to do your own thing. And then after this, I'm going to do a warp, and I'm just going to add an arc to it. Actually, an arch. All about the copy. We can even make it a little bit smaller than that and add it right there. See, look at that. Simple, 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 simple. I like simple. And then we can, what I usually do, instead of merging these, I'm just being kind of sloppy right now, but what I usually do is create a new folder and add it to that folder. That way they're all in the same folder, all the text. And there you go, guys. That's all you do. You add some text to it, kind of mess with the aligning of it, and you just created yourself a vintage poster for a coffee shop or whatever it is. From here, you can do other things too. Like if you want to add some contrast to it, you can actually duplicate this, merge the group, add a new layer, hold Alt, and then make this layer 1 go into layer or group 1, which is your text layer. And what you can do is you can add some shading to it. So if you want to add maybe a different tone in there somewhere to add some more contrast, like I was saying, you could do so by simply adding a circle or something and then going to fill, and then you can add a color. That's actually kind of a cool color for this. I'm probably going to add a different color though. And then what you want to do is after you do that, add a stroke on the inside, and then you want to add a white because the text is white. And then the stroke needs to be a little bit thicker than that. Like about 29 should be all right. I'd probably do a little less than that too. But see, and then what you just did is you added like a different color to it a little bit. See? Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And it adds a little glare to it. Gives it some proximity, or it just makes it stand out a little bit more. Not proximity, it just stands out a little more. Especially since the word copy is more important than everything else. It's pretty important to make that stand out more in any shape or form you can. I would definitely recommend messing with it more though, more than I am, because I'm not really that creative right now as far as this poster goes. But again, I feel like simple sells. So I think that there could be a lot more you could do to this. Like for instance, I can add a border if I wanted to. This is a really uneven border, but just so you guys can get the idea. And then what I would do is I would make it, I'd make the border, or I'd make it black. And then I would add a stroke on the inside of, let's say, 10. I don't want it to be really big. Actually, probably 20. Let's do 20. That's fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the circle tool, and what I'm going to do is erase the sides of it. Just by going to the edges here with the elliptical tool, I'm going to delete. I got to rasterize this first. And then I'm going to delete. And that's what it's going to do. It's going to give me this nice edge.
Scallop.
It's going to give me these little curves at the end of each edge, and it's kind of cool looking. Again, I should have took more time on this, but it's okay. Just to give you guys a general idea of how to make a poster design. And then make it screen, so it just shows the black pretty much is see-through now, so you can see the font on the other side and the picture as well. So now that's it. Now you just made a poster. Please subscribe, and again, I really appreciate you guys watching my videos. And until next time, I'll see you guys then.
Yeah, so I think you could see the reason I picked that video, Connie, was because he primarily was working with fonts there, which I think has to do with what the assignment's all about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So what do you think? Did you find that interesting?
Yeah, actually, I like some of the things that he was doing with the fonts.
Yeah, and I think you'll find that if you go into my announcements, there's a link that will take you in here, and you can watch this video again, and you could try some of the stuff. Now, I noted one of the things I noticed about him was he had a couple of things that he was doing. There were several ways that he could do it. Like, for instance, he used blend modes to blend that scalloped frame in. And actually, you could create it a different way by using you have a couple of different areas where you could make like the background transparent and the effect stays. So he could have actually put the transparency into the background and left the effect on. There's more than one way to do that, which is one of the things that you're going to find about Photoshop, is that and Illustrator, there's a number of different ways that you can approach doing different things. So yeah, again, I thought that was a good video. It was not really hard. It was not really long, and it kind of lent itself to the direction that this last assignment was going in. Now, the one that I'm going to look at with you next, to me, also looked very interesting because, again, it has pretty much everything to do with fonts. This is probably I didn't get to look at the whole thing because I did it on my break at work. I located them on my break at work today. But it looks to me like it's a little complex, but it looks like a really good looking poster. So here, let's take a look at this one and see what you think.
Hi, this is Marty from Blue Lightning TV. I'm going to show you how to create a powerful typographic portrait poster of someone from a photo. Open a photo of someone you'd like to use for this project. The result will look best when your subject is facing directly into the camera. The photo can be color or black and white. If it's in color, desaturate it by pressing Ctrl or Command-Shift-U. We'll make a selection around the subject to separate it from its background. The method you choose to make the selection should depend on the characteristics of your photo. For this example, I'll use the Quick Selection tool. If you're using this tool as well, its size should depend on the size and resolution of your document. You can either drag the tool inside or outside the subject. For this example, I'll select the outside. To remove areas of the selection, press and hold Alt or Option as you drag over those areas. Invert the selection by pressing Ctrl or Command-Shift-I. Click the Refine Edge button or go to Select and Refine Edge. I did an in-depth tutorial on Refine Edge and I provided its link in the video's description. We're going to brush around the hair. To resize your brush, you can use the slider. Check Smart Radius and increase the radius a little bit. Drag around the hair and output it as a new layer with Layer Mask. Then click OK. The hair doesn't have to be perfect. We'll take care of the edges in a minute. Make a new document by pressing Ctrl or Command-N. Let's name it Poster. Change the pixels to inches and make its width and height whatever you'd like. I'll make my poster's height 16 inches and its width 12 inches. Make its resolution 300 pixels per inch if you're ultimately going to print your poster. We'll make the background color black. If you're not working on a recent version of Photoshop, I'll show you how to make it black in a minute. If you are working on a recent version, open your background contents. Choose Other and pick Black. Then click OK on both windows. If you're working on an earlier version, click OK on the New Document window and press D to make your foreground and background colors black and white respectively. Since your foreground color is black, press and hold Alt or Option plus Delete to fill your background with black. To fit it on your canvas, press Ctrl or Command-0. Open the Face document and drag the image up onto the Portrait tab. Without releasing your mouse or pen, press and hold Shift as you drag it down onto the background and release. Pressing Shift kept it centered on your background. To resize it, open your Transform tool by pressing Ctrl or Command-T. Go to a corner, and when you see a diagonal double arrow, press and hold Alt or Option plus Shift as you drag it out or in. To reposition it, go inside the transform and drag it. Continue until the face is centered and fills the document. Then press Enter or Return. To adjust the brightness and contrast of the face, open your Levels window by pressing Ctrl or Command-L. Adjust the input levels until the shadows of the face are pure black and the lightest parts are bright enough. Then click OK. Next, we'll blend in the edges of the hair with the background. Click the Layer Mask to make it active and open your Brush tool. Open your brush picker. We'll take care of the brush size in a moment. Make the hardness 0% and the opacity and flow 100%. To make your brush larger or smaller, press the right or left bracket key on your keyboard. Brush over areas of your subject that you'd like to blend in better. Doing this reveals more of the black background through the layer mask. We're going to ultimately place our text on the side of the face that's brighter, which in this case is the left side. If the light on your subject is evenly distributed, you can place your text on either side. Go to View and make sure Rulers and Snap are checked. If they aren't, just click on them. Go to the ruler on the left and drag out a guideline to the center of your document. It'll snap in place because we have Snap checked. If you don't see the guideline, press Ctrl or Command H. Open your rectangular marquee tool and go to the top corner of the side of the face that has less shadows. Drag a selection over half of the document, making sure it snaps to the center guideline. Click the New Layer icon to make a new layer. In this empty layer, we'll fill the selection with black. Assuming your foreground color is black, press Alt or Option plus Delete. To deselect it, press Ctrl or Command D. To hide the guideline, press Ctrl or Command H. We're ready to add text. Open your horizontal type tool. Open your list of fonts and choose a sans serif heavy font. I'm using American Captain Regular. If you'd like to use this font, I provided its link in the video's description or project files. Make it size between 50 to 100 points and sharp. If the text will be on the left side of your poster, click the Align Right icon. If your text will be on the right side of your poster, click the Align Left icon. Click the color box and pick white. Place your cursor near the top middle of your document and type out your first 2 lines of text. To adjust the space between lines, also known as leading, go to Window and Character. The Character panel will open. Highlight your text and drag the leading slider to the left or right. Keep the space tight between the lines. Click next to the last character of your second line and continue to type out the rest of your text. Open your Move tool and go to View and click Snap to deactivate it. Drag your block of text so it's almost touching the edge of the black background. To resize it, open your Transform tool and go to the outside bottom corner and press and hold Shift as you drag it out. Then press Enter or Return. Control-click or Command-click on the large T of your text layer to make a selection of your text's shape. Click on the eyeball next to the layer to hide the text. Make the black shape active and press the Delete key on your keyboard to delete the area inside the selection. Then deselect it. If there are areas of the portrait that are a bit hard to read, I'll show you how to make the words more legible. Make the face active and open your Dodge tool. Open the Dodge picker. We'll take care of the size in a moment. Make its hardness 0%, the exposure 100%, and make sure Protect Tones is checked. Make the range shadows and adjust the size of your tool. Now, brush over the areas you want to brighten. This time, make the range midtones and brush over the same areas. Open your brush tool and reduce its opacity to 10%. Repeat brushing over those words. Continue to use the Dodge and Brush tools until those words are easier to read. Next, we'll add a thin border set in from the edge of the poster. Make Layer 1 active and click the New Layer icon to make a new layer above it. Fill it with any color. I'll fill it with a foreground color, which is white. Reduce the fill's opacity to 0%. This makes whatever is filling the layer invisible but any effects that we add to it will remain visible. Double-click on the layer to open its layer style window. Click Inner Glow. Change its blend mode to normal, the opacity 40%, and the choke 100%. I'll make the size 70 pixels. However, you may want to adjust this amount depending on the size and resolution of your poster. Click Stroke and make the size between 2 to 4 pixels less than the amount you used for Inner Glow. Make the position inside and change the blend mode to lighten. Then click OK. This is Marty from Blue Lightning TV. Thanks for watching.
So again, there's another video that's kind of nice. I mean, it certainly is a compelling graphic, and I think he did it in a way that it was fairly easy to comprehend. A couple of little things that I might have done differently. I think he used too much regular spacing between the lines. The only thing that I would have done is I would have taken the spacing and changed it ever so slightly so that there were 3 different things that it was talking about on this. Let's see if I can go back to it. Hold on a minute here. Let me click on this and let me find.
You need a website. Why not do it yourself?
Let me go right here.
With Wix, you can create your own professional website.
Okay.
Fill it with.
Where is it? I'm going to get where it's showing it. I think it's right here.
Set in from the edge of the poster.
Yeah, see, all you need is love, and then John Lennon, rest in peace, 1940 to 1980. What I would have done here is I would have just opened up the spacing ever so slightly between all you need is love and John Lennon. So there would have been a little bit more space in there and there. And I personally think that would work a little bit better. But generally speaking, I think what he did was very good here. Just keep in mind that there's more than one way to do this. This is one way to do it. There's another way. There's other ways that you could do this. What do you think, Connie? Did this help you?
Yeah, I like it.
So again, these are just some things that I stumbled upon, and I thought when we're working on a project that's a poster project, it should be something that's a pretty exciting looking image. And I think in both cases, the images came out in the end to be fairly exciting looking, or at least they look like something that was very professionally done. And that's, again, what I think you want to be able to do, come across with something that looks very professional. And this was actually quite a very nice project. I disagreed a little bit with what he was doing with his where he was blending this image in. I think he went to 100%. I wouldn't have gone to 100%. I might have started off blending it out at around maybe 5 or 7 to 10%, and I would have slowly eaten away at the black area down in here, I think a little differently than he did. I mean, even if you look at it here, do you see where you can still see some of it there?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit on the sloppy side. But, I think the other thing, too, is that this guy had, 10 minutes, 11 minutes of video time, and I think he was kind of just trying to get through this thing in 10 minutes and give you a general idea. But again, this is something that if you really were going to do this, you'd probably refine the technique somewhat. I like what he did up here with the all you need is and make that view, make that a little more readable. I think he could have done the same thing right here with the eye and even with the nose slightly, because this is clearly John Lennon, and you can still see the hair even though he's made it a little bit lighter and softer up here. I think the eye is a little bit strong in there. Do you agree with me when you see what I'm talking about there? It kind of gets in the way of the Love John image. I would have softened that just a little bit too, just like he did up there. But that's basically, I'm just nitpicking because ultimately, that's what I would do,
Okay.
I think you did a really good job with it. So those are the two videos. I believe I have the links to them in the announcement, so that if you want to go back and look at them again, you could do that. And there are, I'm sure, many other videos in there that you could take a look at to get other ideas. That's the important thing, is that, you know, you get some ideas out of this, and of course maybe a little inspiration to make you want to work a little bit more with Photoshop. There's crazy cool things that you could do with Photoshop. You just got to get used to the application a little bit, and it does very specific things in very specific ways. And one of the things that I also found really good about both of these videos is they were talking about the concept of this being a print project. And of course, you know, they mentioned the fact that 300 pixels per inch, they gave you a size, you know, so they were aware of the fact that this is something that's a real project, and in order to make it a real project, certain criteria have to be met. You know, and if it's going to be a print, it's going to be CMYK. If it's going to be print, it's got to be 300 pixels per inch, and it has to be the right size. So, you know, again, these are some of the things that you really need to think about when you work in Photoshop. When you do artwork in Adobe Illustrator, that's a completely different animal. Adobe Illustrator is essentially a resolution-independent program. You don't have to worry about having things a certain size. They can be pretty much any size that you want, and you can scale them up and you can scale them down almost indefinitely. Well, I shouldn't say almost, actually indefinitely. You can make them as big as you want and as small as you want over and over again, never hurt anything. Photoshop's a different animal. If you're working on something, you have to make sure that your image is large enough to do what it's going to do. And if you don't, you only run into trouble. So just keep that in mind when you're working with Photoshop in the future. All right?
Okay.
Got any questions or anything you want to ask me before we move on?
No.
No, everything's cool?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to move this out, and I'm going to move this in. All right, so here is, I have several images here. I got two images here, okay? This is actually, let's see if I can go into my layers here. There's the actual poster, okay? And this is how I made the poster. I took this gun, essentially, and I replaced its barrel with a cigarette. And I used this crushed, believe it or not, I used this crushed cigarette for the basis of my cigarette right here. So, you know, again, I wanted my image to be, and you'll see when I get done with this, because I'm going to add some type to it. In this particular case, the type is very easy. But I just wanted to show you, you know, that's really how this whole thing began, with me finding a picture of a cigarette and finding a picture of a gun and morphing them into one image. And then, of course, the smoke that you see here, that was basically me just drawing using the pen tool. Actually, it was a paintbrush tool to draw a line in white, and then I just used a filter to blur it out and make it look like smoke. So, I mean, really simple stuff. You'd be amazed at how with a little bit of skill and a little bit of knowledge, you can come up with something fairly interesting looking very easily. This is the nature one. Okay, so let's hide the nature. Let's hide the text. This is the image. Now you recognize it, except that corner has been replaced. So basically, what I wanted to do with this is I wanted to show you how, you know, you could add type to this and make this thing work so that you get a nice nature image. And again, I'm going to try to do these things as simply as I possibly can, because the bottom line is you don't always have to do things really complicated. Things can be very simple and work very effectively. So you should keep that in mind when you work on things like this. So the first thing that I would do here is on the background layer, there's some fonts up here that I'm not particularly crazy about, and I don't really think it's helping me very much. I don't like the font, and I don't like what it's doing. So, you know, in a situation like that, you can come right in and you can use the spot healing brush tool, which is the tool that we used when we were working on retouching, right? Remember
Yes.
using that thing? All right, well, the first thing, let's go to the image and go to image size. Let's take a look what image size this is. All right, so now this is really, it's got nice resolution, but this is only 3 inches by 3.88 inches, so I could not use this as a poster, but that's okay, because in this particular case, all I'm doing really is I'm showing you how to play with type. That's really what I'm doing here, and give you some ideas as how you might approach playing with type, okay?
Okay.
So, but again, just so that you know, so I'm going to hit cancel on this, and all right, so now I'm going to use this here, the spot healing brush tool, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to try to get rid of that little bit of type up there, because I really don't have any use for it. Now my computer's going to start acting up on me. If you remember, I already had this, I had this happen last time. So, yeah, so it's the computer. Let the computer think about it for a minute. So, yeah, I'm just going to remove that eventually. Come on, do it. I don't know why it does this. I'm not exactly sure why it does this, but every once in a while it does. Wow, it's taking a long time. Come on, come on, come on, come on. We ain't going all night. Oh my goodness. It's very frustrating when it does this. Here we go. So I didn't get it all, so I just go back in, you know, and hit it again until it's gone, and just work my way across. And what it's doing, essentially, it's just going in and it's feeling its way around the area and trying to pick up something that is similar in the background and removing that and replacing that with what's in it. And it does a really nice job. I mean, take a look, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other thing, too, is take a look at the history panel. Look at the history panel. This history panel is really running a process here. Okay, so just keep in mind that the history panel is something that's extremely helpful for you when you're working on this. I also might have this thing. Let's see what I got here. I got hardness set to 0, 25. No, I don't know. Maybe it's probably too big. That's probably what it is. Let me come down and drag it down to about 15-ish. 18 may be all right. Yeah, let's go in there. Let's hit it a few more times. Get rid of that up there. So, yeah, you don't want to rush this. You want to do a nice job. So what I generally do is I just generally bounce around in there a little bit and, you know, get it gone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this image is not a real image. This is an image that I've more or less taken. I also see that because it's sampling the general area, it has a tendency of being a bit of a problem. So if I click on the Alt or Option key, I can ask it to sample from there. Well, actually, it tells me it automatically does this. So then what I would do is I would come in here and I would use the clone stamp tool, which I would then bring down in size, and I would hold the Option key and come in and I'd hit a couple of times with the clone stamp tool just to clear out any of that little garbage that was being picked up with the spot healing brush tool. So basically now, you know, I've got this thing cleaned up. It looks pretty good. I don't think you'd know it was there. And again, you know, you don't have to worry about it. And if I wanted to, I can come in here and I can come up to right to where it began and I can bring it back. That's the history brush and the history panel, and that's why I like the history panel, because you can bring it back to wherever you want to bring it back to. All right, so that's gone. So basically there was some text down in the bottom, and the text really reads, nature, take care of nature as she took care of you. That's what the actual copy in the corner said. So what I did then was I came in here and I created a new text layer. So let's get my type tool and come over here and click, and we're going to type in nature. And I went capital N, Well, actually, you know what? Let me get out of that color. Well, it doesn't matter. Nature. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So let me bring this over here and drag this font in place. So that's about what I wanted to do with this. And if I come in here and I select this guy, you'll see that it is Lithos Pro Black. And of course, I could change this to anything I wanted to change it to. Okay. I don't think I'm going to change it because I actually sort of like that font. And it's black. I could change the weight. Regular. I only get regular and black. There's not that many that I have. And this particular font size here is 36 point. Okay. So that's the first thing that I would do. And now I have this going. As far as the color is concerned, what I did with the color was I selected the font, and then what I did was I used my eyedropper tool to come in here and feel my way around and pick colors. So I got a color here, you know, and if I wanted to, you know, I'd select the font, and then I would apply the color. Okay, and that color, as I explained to you, I pulled off of here. So I'm going to try just picking a few different colors so that you can see what I'm talking about. There's a kind of a nice little red in here somewhere. If I can grab it. There, I got it. Okay, and then again, come in here, click on the nature, and get my paintbrush tool or my bucket tool. Hold on a minute here. Eyedropper tool. There we go. Hit OK. There. And now I got that red in there. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know. I think what I originally did, I think I actually went into this little beetle right here. And I actually grabbed his color, which is what I thought was a good color for this. So the important thing is that you can come in and do this anytime you want. So grab a color. There's the color. And then, of course, you're going to select your text. And then you're going to click your color. And you'll hit OK. And then go View Fit on Screen. Oops, and you know what? I didn't get it selected. So let me select it again. And let me click on that. And then bring the color up and hit OK. And now you've got your color. Okay, so there's your nature. All right? Any questions about how I did that?
No.
Okay, and if you want, I mean, I don't know, you know, now that I'm looking at this, I'm looking down at the bottom, and I'm seeing this color down at the bottom, this pinkish color, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should really take a look at that pink color, see what that pink color can do for me. So let me grab one of those pink colors, because that might be nice, actually. Select nature. And then click on the pink and bring it up, hit OK, and there you go. What do you think? Did you like the pink, or did you like the green or the pink better? What do you think?
The green.
The green? So remember, you got the history panel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just click here and it brings you right back to your color. That's what's really nice about the history panel, is that you can actually, you know, kind of go step by step back through this and take a look at any of the colors that you brought up here, and even go back to the original color, which I think was that color there, or bring it back to that green color. You can see it's slightly different. Evidently, I grabbed it just slightly different. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you. Picking a font and making a font that you like. In this particular case, that nature font, to me, I think looks pretty good. It makes sense. I like the way it's heading, so I chose that. And then, of course, what you're going to do is you're going to come up and create your second line here. And in this particular case, really, all I did was I chose, let's see what font that was. I think it's the same font. It's Myriad Pro Semi Bold, and it's 9 point. And that's basically what I did. I used that. And actually, if I look at this, it probably should be 8.5. Yeah. Maybe not. Let's go 9. Oh, maybe not. Let's go 8.75. Let's try that. 8.75. There. Okay. Now, why I'm being so fussy is because I wanted to not have the font. So I wanted it to kind of flush. So I'm bringing some guides out, And now that I've got that, I've got this in place, I'll take that second line and I'll just move it over until it, you see how I've lined it up so that it sits underneath the nature?
Yes.
Okay. Now again, I'm being fussy, but that's what designers do. That's what we do. We look at these things and we say to ourselves, you know, what's going to make this look nice? And now that I'm looking at this again, I'm thinking to myself, do I like the spacing between this and this? And you know what? Initially I did, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm not so sure that I do. So maybe what I would do is I would take the word nature and I would maybe start bringing the nature down a little bit, because I think that's the way to go. And I actually think that looks a little bit better. So again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to place the font in such a way that it's going to be immediately obvious and you're going to be able to read it as one solid, cohesive thought. So this kind of goes back to what I was criticizing in your piece, Connie. You understand?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Just a matter of how you position the font and how you place it and make it so that it works, and what's the emphasis. In this case, nature is the emphasis. So basically that's it. So I got color going here. And I have different types of font, although I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm not one that uses a lot of different fonts. I will use 2 fonts, sometimes 3 for a graphic, but usually it's something along the line of sort of like a symbolic, if I'm using it symbolically. In this particular case, I use 2 different fonts, but this font is a very standard font. I mean, it's Myriad Pro. You can't go wrong with Myriad Pro. At least to me, I don't think you can. So I generally use Myriad Pro a lot in the work that I do because it's a nice, solid, clean font. The word nature, you know, I thought there's an opportunity to use a font maybe that's a little bit more unusual, a little bit nice, but it's not too over the edge, you know. So I went in and I used this particular font. I can barely remember the name of it, Lithos Pro Black, okay? So Lithos Pro Black. Okay, so now I got this looking the way I want it to look. But the second thing, if you remember what I was saying about your particular piece, and I sort of feel the same way about this, even though that font is nice and bold and it's big, can you see where it doesn't stand off of the graphic in the background very much?
Yeah.
Can you see how it kind of like, I don't know, almost begins to disappear into the background graphic? And that's not something that I want. So then I have to ask myself, well, what do I do about that? Do I change the color? Well, gee, you know, I kind of like that color. I think that, what do you think? You like that color?
Yeah, it might, sorry, it might be maybe just a tiny bit darker, but.
Well, I actually like the color, and I think I have another idea, another way that, you know, we could handle this so that it will stand off. And again, one of the things that I want you to think about when you do your project is, you know, we're working with Adobe Photoshop, and Photoshop has a whole bunch of different things that we can use. We have layer effects in here, all kinds of great layer effects. So this is the layer I'm working with right there, right? Mm-hmm. And it's that nature text layer, so it's selected. And we have effects. You know, we have blending options, we have a bevel and emboss, a stroke, an inner shadow, an inner glow, a satin, color overlay, gradient overlay, pattern overlay, outer glow, and drop shadow. And every one of these is great. I mean, I could see using any one of these and making it work, you know? Like, for instance, inner shadow. Let's see what inner shadow does. Yeah, you see what I mean? Look at that. See how great that is? It just kind of pops it right off. Now, that's not really what I had in mind, but I just thought very quickly I would pop that on and show you that, you know, there's one that really has potential, you know? Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to show you is that once you have this open like this, you can come in here and you can remove and apply something different. So the one that I really had in mind is a drop shadow. And there's the drop shadow. But that drop shadow isn't really what I want. Oh, and by the way, you can click on this, but in order to actually get into the drop shadow panel, you have to actually click on the layer. So you think of these as layers.
Okay.
Okay, and you have to actually activate that layer. Now I'm in that layer. So what I can do with this is I can start playing around with the size and the distance. Right now this has got a distance of 8 pixels. I'm going to bring it down to, like, say, well, what do I want? Maybe about 5 or 4 maybe. Let's try 5. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the size of this and bring the size way down. You see what I'm doing? I'm bringing it down. That's 0. And 0, I think, is a little too extreme. So maybe I'll try putting 1 in. That's probably pretty good. Let's try the distance of 6. Distance of 6. There we go. That's all right. And now I can play around with the opacity, and I can get the opacity to do what I want it to do. And maybe that opacity right there is pretty good. Let's see what we got. And that's probably pretty good right there. And then hit OK. So there you see now I've got my word nature popping out quite significantly. Now, if you want, because this is a layer effect, okay, I can come in here and I can double click on drop shadow and it'll come back up. And I can come in and I can start playing around with, like, for instance, the size of this. Maybe, see how I've made it 10 and you see how it's softened it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's way too much. Maybe instead of 1, though, maybe I want it to be 3. Well, actually, I might even soften it further. Let's try making it 5 or 6. Let's try 6. 6 is too much. So I want to head back in the other direction, maybe around 4. Whoop, whoop, not 44. 4. Yeah, 4. There you go. That's kind of what I want right there. Okay? And hit OK. Now if I look at this, I say to myself, well, that looks really good. But now that I put this drop shadow on it, can you see how it's a little too close to the T?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would then come in and I would take that line of text and select that, and I would just use the down arrow and I would just click it down a couple of times and get it to where it isn't so close to that drop shadow. And I could probably go a little bit further down, and maybe right about there is pretty good. Now, you know, I don't really think I need to do anything with the take care of nature as she took care of you, because it's black, and there's nothing dead on black near that. So I really am in pretty good shape with that. And just by adding a simple drop shadow and a nice color to the actual font itself, I have something that reads beautifully over top of the image. What do you think?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, and the other thing too is, if you want, you could come in here to nature, and I can click on the effect, and I can go inner glow, and I can apply an inner glow to this. And now that I'm seeing this, I'm not at all happy with it. I don't think that's the way to go at all. So I would take the inner glow off because it just doesn't work. What I might do is click on inner shadow and choose inner shadow. And maybe what I could do is I could click in here and see if I could come over here and sample a color. Hit that green. Let's see if I can get the right green. Yeah, there we go. There we go. That's pretty good. You see what I did? I added an inner shadow of green to this thing. And I can play around with this until I get something that looks right. Let's see if I can, it's probably got to be small. And that's probably about right. Let's maybe make it 5. And choke, what about choke? I don't know what choke's going to do. Choke actually looks pretty good. Let's make a little bit of a choke on it. Hit OK. Oh, you know what? Let's see, maybe soften it a little bit. Yeah. There. Okay? So now I've added that, and if I wanted to, I can hide it like that and show it like that. And now I've actually even added a little bit more color to the font. So, you know, when they talk about experimentation and playing around, yeah, experiment with type a little bit, but don't go nuts with type. Make your type bold and very readable. But then when you really want to get into experimentation with type, what I want you to do more than anything else is I want you to play around with the idea of doing things that will help create another layer of interest, another layer of color, another layer of texture to your piece, like I did with this. As you can see, I didn't do an awful lot with Take Care of Nature as she took care of you. But I think you'd agree you really don't need to do very much with that. I think all the interest is in the word nature, and I think that does it for this. The image is kind of a compelling image. You don't want to take too much away from that, but you want something that has a certain power that will support it. And I think this does. So let me go to the view menu and let's go extras. Let's go guides. Let's hide the guides, or let's clear the guides. We don't need them anymore. Yeah, and there you go. Now, so there you have that. Now you're gonna. Did you say that you didn't know how to create a PDF? You know how to create a PDF?
Yes.
Okay. You said though you didn't know how to size this thing for web.
Right.
All right. All right. So let's say that I've saved this as a PDF. I won't do that because I think you probably know how to do that. So the other thing that I'm going to want to do here is, and let me go File, Save As. Let me go Save As, and I'm going to call this nature_web. W-E-B. Okay? So essentially what I'm doing is I'm saving this as a duplicate. I'm saving it so that when I modify this, see, now it's no longer just nature. Now it's the natureweb.psd.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I can do now is I could probably close this up for a minute. I don't need this for a second. What I'm about to do now is I'm about to get this thing sized properly for export as a piece of art for the web. And I believe what they wanted was they wanted it to be 500 pixels. So I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to say I'm going to go 500 pixels wide. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to go to the image menu. And first of all, let's go to mode and see what this is. This is, what is it in? It's in RGB. Okay, so we're fine. We don't need to change that. Let's go to image. And let's go to image size. And what I'm going to do here is the resolution is set to 200 pixels. So my choice is if I'm going to create a piece of art for the web, then this thing really should be less than 200 pixels. And I'll tell you why. Frankly, if it were 200 pixels, it will create a piece of art that's too big, number one. And number two, it will, the browser that we're going to use to display this thing isn't going to be able to show 200 pixels anyway. Either it'll show 72 or 90. That's essentially the resolution of your browser. You're on a Mac or a PC?
I don't know. It's a laptop.
Are you on a Mac or a PC? Is it a Mac?
No, I think it's a PC. It might be a PC.
Okay. I believe how it works, I'm not an expert on this, but I believe the Macintosh is 72 pixels per inch, and I believe the PC has the capacity to 90 pixels per inch. So generally what I do when I create this is I will come in here, first of all, this is set to image because originally this was a print document, right? We were making it a print document. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to pixels. And it's not going to let me change it to pixels, is it? Let's see here. Pixels per inch, percent pixels. It's not going to let me do that. Boy. All right. Well, it's not going to let me do that. So what I will do is, let me change this to 72. 72. Oh, I have to resample it. Maybe that's what it is. Let's try it now. Yeah, there we go. Pixels. Okay. I had resample off. I'm sorry. So anyway, I've set this down. I've set this down to a resolution of 72. I said the width was going to be 500. The width is 600. So I'm going to change this from 600 down to 500. Okay? 500. So now I know that the width of this in the end is going to be 500 pixels per inch. Resolution is 72. I'm going to reduce this. This is sort of like something you don't have to do, but I generally do it. There are different ways that you can set this to reduce down or enlarge depending upon what you're doing. And since I am sending this thing down smaller, I'm going to choose the bicubic sharper for reduction, which is right here. Okay, you have others. You have automatic, you have preserve details, enlargement. Usually you use that if you're enlarging something and you want to try to keep it sharp, the detail sharp. Bicubic smoother, that's if you're not so interested in the sharp, you want it a little bit, maybe a little bit smoother looking. And then of course all these others down here. But again, I just used the bicubic sharper in this particular case. So there it is, 572 bicubic sharper, hit OK. And my image sizes. So there is the first step. Now what you're going to do with this is you're going to save this as a JPEG because you're going to send me a PDF and you're going to send me a JPEG. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Image, File, Save for Web. You could do this another way, but Save for Web is generally the way I go with something like this. And I want to very briefly show you this. I don't know how many times you've actually used this, but you are in a web course. So you will be saving things for the web, and you should know how this panel works. Save for Web. There's the Save for Web panel. Have you been through the Save for Web panel yet? Has anybody talked to you about this yet?
No.
All right, so this is the Save for Web panel. It's showing you this at 100%. And normally you'll have this, which is the original. And then you have the optimized. What optimized means essentially is, look at the original, look down here. You see where it says original, Nature's Web PSD, 948K?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that means 948 kilobytes of information. If you come in here and hit optimize, I want to show you what happens down there. Click on that. And what it does is it shows you that this is set for JPEG. Well, the reason it's set for JPEG is because up here, I have it set for JPEG.
Right.
Okay. Now this has a background. So you would want this to be a JPEG because the background is there. If this were a silhouetted thing where there was no background, then you might be working with something like a Ping 24. But in the case of this piece of art, which has a background, you'd be going with JPEG. Now, this has also been optimized. The quality has been changed, and it's set to medium for a quality of 45. Now, I'm going to show you about that in a minute. But notice that what it does is it reduces the overall size of this down to 47.55K. So that's quite a bit significantly smaller than 948K. You see my point?
Yes.
Okay, now the other way, and this is generally the way I use it, is I generally set it up to 2 up. Now you can also set it to 4 up, and you can do 4 different variations on this, but I never do this. This is ridiculous. I mean, 2 up is more than enough. 2 up shows you what the original looks like compared to your exported version. This is your exported version. Also, you can come in here and there's a size and download time. So depending upon the kind of system that you want to, like for instance, you know what we're talking about when we're talking about cable, as opposed to a dial-up modem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So basically everybody's got cable. So if you happen to know the general number of cable, the kbps that you're working with here, you can set it for that. I generally set it to the lowest one. I really do. That's why mine is 56.6 kbps. I generally leave it there. Okay. And then what I would do is I would come in here with this and I would set the quality. Now, I want to show you what that's all about. So I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to drag it way down to like 9. And I want you to take a look at my artboard. And when you do this on your own, I'd like you to try this and see what it does. Can you see how cruddy this piece looks? This is the after. This is the before. This is the after. Can you see how cruddy that looks?
Yeah.
Okay. It's 22.75K. Now, that's a great number. That's a very small file. But the problem is, and you got to understand something, this is an image that it's already been exported. This image here was something I pulled off of your site. So it's already been reduced, and you shouldn't even be doing this. But in this particular case, I'm doing it because I just wanted to play around with that image, and I want to show you how this works. So I got this set to low here. So it's 22.75. The original was 948K. So it's actually really small, but it is not what you want. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a balance between how clean this image can be. You want it to look as much like the original as possible, but you want that number to be as small as possible. So there's a balancing act that goes on. You have to balance the two. So I'm going to just start dragging this slider back up, and I'll bring it up. There's 25, and I don't know whether you can start seeing it yet. I think you sort of can. This image is now looking a little bit better than it did a few seconds ago when I had it smaller. And I'm going to continue, and this is now going up in size, 33.55K, which, by the way, is still a very small number. So I'm going to bring it up. Let's try it at 50. Bring it up to about 50. There we go, 50, there you go, 53.51K, and the image is better. It's, you know, it doesn't look great, but it certainly looks much better. So let's bring it up to around 70. That's probably close enough. 89.21K, and this thing is beginning to look really good. So now I'm at the point where I could probably start considering using this as my exported version. Let's see what it looks like when we bring it all the way up to not 100%. I brought it up maximum 100%. This thing now still, since it is optimizing it, I just want you to understand this. Even though this says quality 100%, it's in the Save for Web optimizing dialog box. You understand that?
Okay.
Yeah, so this is what the original is doing, but because we're in the Save for Web optimizing dialog box, even though it's set to 100 maximum, it's still optimizing it. And it's now 204.3K. So even if we were to go with this, it's much better than the original. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say because this image has already been optimized once before, I'm not going to take it down anymore. I'm going to leave it set at that size right there, and I'm going to hit Save. And I'm going to go to week 4, and I'm going to call it Nature Web JPEG, and I'm going to hit Save. And now when I go in there, all right, let me have a second to get here. Week 4. I have a JPEG Nature Web. That is what I just created right there. And that is what you're going to create and what you're going to send to me when you do your project. So you're going to send me the PDF of it, and then what you're going to do is more or less what I just did there. You're going to go in, you're going to resize the file in Photoshop and export it using the Export for Web dialog box like I did, and make it 500 pixels either wide or high, whatever you choose to do. And you'll send me a PDF of the print piece and a JPEG of the web piece. Okay?
Okay.
Think you could do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? So you know what I did, and that all makes sense, and you have no problem.
Yep, I'm fine.
Okay, now I have this I want to show you. See, this is my cigarettes kill. So again, what I just quickly wanted to show you here was that, you know, I already showed you how I didn't show you, I didn't actually build it, but I gave you an idea as to how I created that image of the smoking gun with the cigarette. And in this particular case, go ahead, blow yourself away. Cigarettes kill people, thetruth.com. You can see what I did here. I basically used the same font. I just used different weights, and I actually used different colors because this actually is not white. This is actually I'd say probably around a 10% gray. And I did that so that there was sort of like an order, a visual order to this. Obviously, go ahead. That's the actual message. Go ahead. If you're going to do it, go ahead. You see what I mean? There's a sarcasm in that. And then, of course, what are you doing? You're blowing yourself away, And, of course, that's a play on words. What do you do when you blow cigarette out your mouth? You blow smoke out your mouth, blow yourself away. You're shooting yourself in the head with a gun. There's a play on words there. And then, of course, cigarettes kill people is the real message behind the whole thing. And then, of course, it's by thetruth.com. So, again, this is sort of a political message, not a political message, but the kind of message that we're supposed to be doing with this project. Okay, so that's how I handled that. Now, there's one more thing. I think I have just enough time to show you this because this is quite interesting. So I did this poster. This is an actual poster. Let's see if I can. There's the actual picture. All right. So that's the actual picture. The poster I did. There's the chili poster. Let's see here. Yeah, here it is. So this is the chili poster. This was a 45-inch by 45-inch poster. This was an actual poster that I did. And I had this piece of art right here, this little guy right there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way on earth that this is 45 inches. This is a small piece of art. So I needed to make this into a 45-inch by 45-inch poster. And actually it came off the web. So it would have been even double hard to do this. So what I did, and this is something that I just want to show you because it'll give you a really good idea of how we are supposed to be working when we create things like this. This is a really good example of that. So I'm going to open up Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to grab that image, the chili PowerPoint, and I'm going to drop, no, it's not the one I want, it's a picture. I think that's the one, yeah. And I'm going to drop the picture in there. Okay, so now you see what I did. Let me get that over here. Now you see what I did was I came into Adobe Illustrator, and I took this piece of art that I found on the web. And what I want to do is I want to turn this into a piece of vector art. Why do I want to do that? If I turn this into a piece of vector art, I'm then able to go in and I'm able to modify it and create a piece of art that I can make any size that I want. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So I can't do that with this bitmap. Actually, what I could do, though, is I could open this thing up in Photoshop first. Let me close this and hit save. Yeah, no, I don't save that. Close that. I don't need to show you how to do the type on that. I think you get the general idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to open this up. First of all, let me close this for a second. All right, now let me open this up in here first. Let me bring that down. Let me drag that picture into here. All right, picture 3, drag it into there. Okay, so the first thing that I would do with this is I'd come in here and I would get my selection tool and I would create a circle. Hold down the shift key and create a circle. Bring a circle up here and size the circle, move it into position. I want the circle to be big enough to cover that center area. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make that cover the center area. And I'm almost there. Let's get it up just a bit there and bring it down. That's probably pretty good. Okay, so you see how I made that circle in there?
Yes.
All right, now I'm going to create a new layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap this around and I'm going to dump white in that layer. I'm going to go select, deselect. Okay, so what I've done is I've gotten rid of that center area. I'm going to make that into an open medallion. So I wanted to get rid of that. It's easier to do that in here than it is to do it in Adobe Illustrator. Okay?
Okay.
So that's the first thing I will do. And I'm going to go Layer, Flatten Image, and I'm going to save this as Picture 3. I'm going to go File, Save As. I'll make it Picture 4. Picture plus 4. And hit Save. And hit OK. And I'm done with Photoshop for the time being. So now I'm going to come back to Illustrator, and I'm going to find this guy, picture 4, and bring picture 4 in. And now you see I got picture 4. Only this time I don't have that center area. It's just a white area. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so like I say, the reason I did that is because I don't really want that stuff that was in the middle there. This is what I want. I want this pattern right here. I wanted this to be white so that I could actually, you know, use this as a poster. All right, so now that I've done this, what I'm going to do is, this is selected. You see, I selected. This is also a bitmap. Right now, this is a bitmap. So I'm going to go to the object menu, and I'm going to go to image trace, and I'm going to choose make. And I get that, which actually is kind of cool. But I don't really want this to be black and white, and I don't want to play around with the colors. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for the colors that are there. So I can, and again, I don't know whether have you done any work with Illustrator yet?
A little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to open up this image trace panel here. And what I have are a bunch of presets. And I think I'm looking for the high fidelity photo. So I'm going to click on high fidelity photo. And you see it's going to process this. And there you go. Look at that. You see how it came up and gave me that? I don't like it. You see, it's too much going on here. So let's go back in and let's try a different one. Let's try low fidelity photo. Let's see if that one's better. And it didn't change too much, only it did change a little bit. So let's try actually coming in here and choosing, let's try 6 colors. That, not quite. Let's try it one more time. Let's try it with 16 colors. Well, that's probably what I'm looking for right there. Okay? So essentially, what I'm trying to do here, now I could come in here and I could play around with these colors if I want. I could knock colors out by just dragging the slider down and choosing less and less colors until I get to the point where I want it to be. Okay, you see that colors are going away?
Yes.
Bring it back a little bit more. Actually, I think I like that. I think I'm good with that. Okay, so I've actually got it down to 9 colors. So what that's essentially, what this is about to do is this is about to make this thing 9 colors. All right?
Okay.
So I'm going to go to the object menu. I'm going to go to image trace, and I'm going to go expand. You see what it did? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It turned that into a piece of vector art. Now, why do I go to all this trouble? Because I mentioned to you that this poster was 45 inches wide. Now let me show you something. I'm going to go to the window menu, and I'm going to go to artboards, and I'm going to choose that artboard and go artboard options. Okay, now the artboard currently is 8 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is I am going to change this to 45 inches wide. And I'm going to change this to 45 inches wide. And I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to go view, zoom out. I have to do this a few times. Zoom out. Fit artboard and window. There we go. There's my 45 by 45. You see how small that art is?
Yes.
Okay. What's great about this is 1 minute ago, this thing here, let me just show you. 1 minute ago, this thing was a bitmap. And if I ever made that thing 45 inches wide, it would look horrible because you can't make a bitmap that big. But now that this is a piece of vector art, I can come in here and I can scale this guy up. Watch this. And I can make that 45 inches wide. Like that, and look it looks exactly like the piece of art when it started out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in a case like this, and now that I'm done with this, I can go file save as, and I could save it as a JPEG. Let me go actually let me cancel. Let's go file, I think it's export. And let's go in here and let's save it as a JPEG. And this is also going to go into week 4. And we'll call this, picture 4 is fine. Export it. Quality, RGB, perfect. Okay. And I'll close this guy out. Save it. No. Shut this because I'm done with it. Go into Photoshop, and I can close this guy up, and I can go File, Open, and Picture Plus 4 open. And now if I go image size, look it. It's how big? It's inches. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hit cancel. I think that's the wrong one. Let me open up the right one. File, open. Is it in 4? Where is it? Picture Plus 4. What happened to this thing? That's it. That's got to be it. But why is it not image size? No, that's not right. Hold on, something's not right. Wait a minute. Where are you? Did I save this in another place? Week 4? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's see here. I wonder if it's in here. Is that it? Possibly that's it. Let me see. I might have saved this in the wrong place. See, that's the problem. It should be, that should be 45 inches. That's the whole point. This should be 45 inches. Let's see if this is it. Image size. Nope, that's not it. I don't know. Well, anyway, that piece that I saved should be 45 inches. And I'm not finding it for some reason. I don't know. I guess what I'll have to do is go back to Illustrator and try it again. I got like 4 minutes to do this too, so I'm running out of time. The only reason I'm going to this trouble is I wanted to show you that when you save that, it's 45 inches by 45 inches. That thing is actually 45 inches.
Okay.
That's what I wanted you to see. And you could then, if you had to, go in and build that thing in. Let's see if there's even a picture before. Okay, so there it is. What size is this artboard? Let's see what size the artboard is. Artboard size with options. And no, I wanted this thing. Okay, so let's see. Hit cancel, and let's go File. Place it in there real quick. Picture Plus 4. Okay, and let's go in and let's quickly do this one more time, see if I can make this work. I'm not exactly sure why this failed on me, but it did. Let's see if I can get it straightened out. Okay, so let's go Object, Image Trace, Make, and let's come in here and let's choose 6 colors, and I think, what did I have, 12? Is that about what it was?
No, you took it up to 12 and then you brought it down to 9.
9. Okay, well I hit 9. That's what I want right there, 9. And let's go Object, Image Trace, Expand. There we have it. Okay, so now I'm just going to very quickly come in here to the window artboard. Let's do this again. Artboard options. Let's make this 45 inches by 45 inches. Hit OK. And let's go View, Fit Artboard and Window. There we go. Oh, there it is. Now what happened here? What is this? Something's not right here. What's going on with this? What is happening? That's the thing. Is this window artboard options 45 inches? Okay, so that's it. All right, let's bring this up. See what's going on. I don't know why that was there suddenly. There. Okay, so that's close enough. So let's go File, Save, and we'll call that Picture Plus 4. Save. Okay. And now let's go File. Take a second to save. File, Export. And I'll call this Picture Plus 5. This way I'll know And this is in week 4. Yeah, that's it. Oh, export. All right, now scale 1 to 1. Inches, let's go pixels. Scale 72 pixels. Okay, 72 pixels. And hit OK. All right, now let's go and open Photoshop. Let's go File. File, open. Picture plus 5. Where are you? Picture plus 4. Was it? Is that what I'd say with picture plus 4?
No, you saved it as picture plus 5.
Yeah, so you see it's gone. Something strange is happening here. What happened? Did I save it on the desktop? Where did it go? Let's try it again. File, save at. Let's go export. Now that's picture plus. I'm going to go to the desktop because this is throwing me all off at 5. Okay, and this is a JPEG. There we go. And hit export. There we go. RGB. Okay, there we go. All right, now that should do it. And on the desktop, picture plus 5. Let's drag it in here. And see that's big. And this is 16%. So if we go to the image size, you see what it is, 6,690 pixels. Inches, 44.6 pixels. So you see what I was able to do with this is, I know this was pretty convoluted. I'm going to hit cancel. I basically was able to take a piece of art which was 8 inches, and I was able to make that piece of art relatively nice looking to 44 inches, which is spectacular. That's essentially what I wanted to show you.
Okay.
All right? So keep that in mind. You can't do that with every photo, but when you have something which is a design like this and you want to make it big, you can go into Illustrator, you can vectorize it, you can save it as a JPEG, make it bigger and save it as a JPEG, and then you have yourself a nice big piece of art to work with. That's it. You got any final thoughts or any questions?
No.
No? So you're okay? You'll be able to finish your assignment and all that stuff?
Yes, I can.
All right. I'm going to stop recording.